Investigators are hoping someone will recognize a man wanted for sexually assaulting 2 teenage girls. Good evening, this is CTV News. I'm Byron Scott.
And I'm Patricia Valone. Thank you for joining us. Well, 2 Laurel girls are attacked in broad daylight, and Prince George's police are going door to door to find a suspect. Today, officials canvassed Briarwood Drive at Briarcroft Lane, where the assault happened on September 23rd. Latifah Majid has more on the story.
Yes, guys, take a good look at this sketch. Police say this man allegedly sexually assaulted 2 young girls while they were walking to middle school. Now, the suspect is described as being 6 foot tall, weighs 220 pounds, and has his hair in dreadlocks shaped in the style of a mohawk.
Well, today we are canvassing the neighborhood, passing out flyers. There was a sexual assault that occurred on the early morning hours of September 23rd. 2 teenage females were walking in the area when they were approached by a gentleman that we have a composite sketch of. He inappropriately touched them and ran away. So we are appealing to the community, trying to get them to come forward with any information that they may have that will lead to their arrest of the individual.
Yes, it surprises me because, this is an old neighborhood, a quiet neighborhood, and, we haven't heard of something like this before. You've heard of it all over the place happening sometimes, but here probably for the first time. I mean, I've been here for nearly 10 years.
A cash reward of up to $1,000 is being offered for the tip that leads to the arrest and indictment of the suspect. In Laurel, I'm Latifah Majid, CTV News.
And anyone with information is asked to call Crime Solvers. That number is 1-866-411-TIPS.
And a Texas woman is sentenced for her role in a 2010 quadruple murder inside a garage apartment in Riverdale. Rochelle Metzger is at the courthouse in Upper Marlboro with the outcome of today's hearing.
The defendant, 22-year-old Keisha Gilmer, was just a teenager when she met her boyfriend, 47-year-old Daryl Ballard. Together, the two would have a child. Together, the two would drive from Texas to Maryland to sell drugs, and eventually, together, the two would murder 4 people, 2 women and 2 very young children. And today, Gilmer learns her punishment for the part she played in that horrendous crime. Today, Keisha Gilmer learned she will likely never again walk the streets a free woman after pleading guilty to 4 counts of murder in the execution-style slayings of Wasidi Sakala, Dawn Brooks, and her 2 children.
Ms. Gilmer was given a life sentence in exchange for her testimony in this case, and it is in fact a life sentence, and the only way that she would in fact be able to get out is if the governor were to commute her sentence.
Gilmer cooperated with prosecutors testifying at Ballard's trial in exchange for a lighter sentence. On the stand, she said the two traveled to Prince George's County from Texas in August 2010 with 60 pounds of marijuana, which they intended to sell, and stored at Brooks's house in Riverdale. Someone stole the drugs, and Gilmer says Ballard believed the women were involved, so he shot them along with the kids. Gilmer admits that she blocked the door so they couldn't escape and then helped clean up the crime. The young mother sobbed as she spoke this morning.
One of the things she did say was that she writes to the family every year, she said, and she was very clear to make the point that no one forces her to write to them, that she writes to them because she wants them to know how sorry she is, and she for her role in these terrible crimes, but she's still going to continue to write to them because she really does want them to know that she's sincere and hopes that one day they'll be able to forgive her.
We're pleased with the sentence in this case, and I know that certainly the family members are, and they're happy to close this chapter in their lives and be able to now begin that healing process.
Before issuing the sentence, the judge told Gilmer that while he understands she had a rough upbringing, she has little formal education and has a child with Ballard, the crime the two committed was so heinous, he says he couldn't see giving her anything less than life behind bars. In Upper Marlboro, I'm Rochelle Metzger, CTV News.
Daryl Ballard was convicted of the murders and related weapons charges earlier this year. In June, he was sentenced to 4 life terms without parole, 3 life sentences, plus 80 years all to run consecutively. And the death of an unarmed black teenager, Michael Brown, continues to outrage a community and raise questions about police brutality around the nation.
Here in Maryland, government officials aren't taking a back seat on this issue, and they're determined to do something about it. Our CTV Stephen Graves is joining us now with more.
Right, that Michael Brown incident might have people speaking right now, but the fact of the matter is this has been going on in the United States for a while now, and today it was an emotional outcry from many people all uniting to help help end racial profiling by all levels of law enforcement. It needs to stop was the message from several faith-based leaders and elected officials as they gathered in Baltimore's Union Baptist Church. Although they admit it'll be a long struggle to get to that point, they're hoping the End Racial Profiling Act proposed by Senator Ben Cardin will bring much-needed change.
We need everyone together. We've got to end racial. We can't lose any more of our children. That's what this is about. So we're going to continue to put the spotlight until we've end profiling in America, and we're committed to work together to get this done.
If we are one nation under God, one nation under one flag, we should have one law ending racial profiling that everybody understands.
We are standing here united with 2 United States senators addressing this issue. We are putting the word out that we do not stand for it, and hopefully that catches on in our community. That's what this is. It's bigger than this.
So in Baltimore City, as one example, the mayor appoints the police commissioner. So I think it's important that they introduce federal legislation, but I think it's more important that you have local buy-in.
Now, representatives from the NAACP, ACLU, and the Muslim community also attended the meeting. They all support Cardin's bill, which would prohibit discriminatory police profiling and provide educational training for officers to stop the action at its root. And a big proponent of this bill is cutting funding to these local police departments from the federal government that provides this funding. They're saying no training, no money. So.
And how big an audience was there?
It was surprising. There weren't too many people there, but it was a press event, so I don't know if that was maybe an issue, but they're hoping that word gets out and people really fight against this issue.
All right, thank you, Stephen.
All right, thank you. Well, moving beyond Ferguson, knowing your rights, that was the topic of a discussion held at Flowers High School last night. Panel members, including the American Civil Liberties Union, Casa de Maryland, and a state delegate, among others. Panelists talked about a range of issues, including racial profiling and knowing your rights when stopped by the police.
So ideally, if an officer walks up to you for no good reason and wants to talk to you, you can decline, am I free to go? Now, if he says you're not, then he has to have a basis for detaining you. And if he doesn't, that's something that I would deal with later on in the course, because you don't want to debate that with the officer on the street, because again, you want to survive that encounter.
The session also included a question and answer period. Several people addressed the panelists about their concerns with the criminal justice system.
Things. And then the other thing is, how do we deal with this issue of race, that these officers are coming on this force and they see and they know the culture says, I can get away with doing things to African Americans that I cannot get away with doing things to Caucasians. Because that's the culture. I learned it, everybody on the job learned it. We knew that. So Fourth Amendment rights, First Amendment rights, that don't mean nothing on the street. It means absolutely nothing. If I'm gonna figure out a way, I know officers say, I'm gonna figure out a way to get a bus out of these guys. And we're gonna lock them up. And the system is gonna back me up. They know that, officers know that. So I'm saying you, that's what I think our public is concerned with is we got now this extraordinary, it's now coming out.
Organizers say they plan other forums in the near future. And you are watching CTV News. I'm Byron Scott.
And I'm Patricia Valone. Up